Hey, my name is Jose Ocondo. I'm a Chattanooga-based web designer and Webflow developer. In the room with me is Maggie Rainbow, my dog, so you might hear her chewing on things or grunting or growling, I don't know what. But anyways, in this video, we're actually not talking about Webflow. So if you're a subscriber or you've been to this channel before, I've almost exclusively done Webflow tutorials, but I wanted to try something just a little different. I got inspired. I love watching speed build, speed art. Tyler Pate is one of my favorites. Is watching him do an illustration or watching somebody build something in Cinema 4D or do a drawing. Whatever it is. It's just really fun to have somebody speed up their process, and you kind of get this more kind of like meta view of how they do things, what their process is like, and what it looks like to build something. So this is about a 2-hour process where I designed this website. I'm going to speed it up to about 20 minutes or so. But I want to give you some kind of like voiceover as the speed build goes on and let you know kind of what was going through my mind. What were the different design principles that were going through my mind? In my work at Whiteboard, a creative agency here in my hometown, I do about 50% design and 50% development. And I figured that a lot of you are the same. You do 50-50. And so this might be of interest to you. Even if you don't do design, as a developer, it's always helpful to get more acquainted with these things because when we're developing, we're making design decisions because we have to figure out how to interpret a static design with fixed width and make that look good on a responsive browser window. So I hope that this content is helpful. If it is, drop a comment and let me know. This is the first of its kind. If you want to see more, please ask for more, and that way I'll know that this is good content you guys like to see. Okay, in a minute, I'm going to jump into Unsplash and talk about how I got the inspiration for this site. It's not at all official. I just took some photos from Unsplash and made my own concept. So not at all associated with the Wright brand. And then I also want to go into my information architecture page in Figma and talk about how I kind of structured the page in terms of strategy, which is really important too. And then after that, we'll jump into the speed build. So if you want to just forward, skip all that intro stuff and jump right into the speed build, I'll put the timestamp in the description box below. All right, so here we are on unsplash.com. And the reason that I'm covering this and not just jumping straight into Figma is because I thought some of you might like to try to do something similar to what I did. So I just went on Unsplash, and if you scroll down, you might notice that there are a couple of sponsored posts now. They've been doing that recently. So here's one from Chewy, and if you click on the profile, you'll just get to see all of these amazing stock photos. Well, I guess not stock, but just product photos and lifestyle photos from these brands showcasing their things. And this just makes for great practice to design landing pages, home, contact, 404, email, whatever it is. There's so many great images you can pull off of here and get a little bit of practice. I personally found Wright bacon, and I kind of liked a different variety with some of the flat lay, some of the lifestyle, all that kind of stuff. So I went with that, but you can try creating your own Wright brand homepage concept. You can use something from Chewy or XPS. Dell, I saw, has some stuff on there. Whatever it is, just having media makes the job of web design so much easier, having just really beautiful images. So download some images and give it a try and have some fun, get quirky, experiment, and just kind of flex your design muscles. All right, now let's jump into Figma. All right, I know that this looks like mad chaos, but there is some order to it, I promise. Basically, before I started this design, and maybe I want to encourage you a little bit if you decide to do this, it's kind of helpful just to get your space ready. Now, this is a digital space, but imagine that you're like painting something or drawing something. You want to get your tools and make sure that they're all to hand. You paper it out, that things are around you aren't cluttered. And so that's basically what we're doing here. I went to the Wright Bacon homepage and basically stripped out all of the images and layout and just said, okay, what is the necessary content that has to go on this page? And that way I kind of know, okay, I've got 7 or 8 sections, however many there are on here. This is what needs to go on them. And now I can start thinking about what are some images or textures or what are the things that are going to support this necessary content. I grabbed all of the branding elements I thought I might need, like the main badge and the little monogram. And I even pulled this image, which I thought was really inspiring, where there's this kind of like wooden badge with the arched Wright text, and just really fun elements that it kind of screams like, hey, we're founded on tradition. We've done this for a long time and we know what we're doing. I started exploring with typography and just asking myself, how can I achieve that similar vibe that's being communicated here? Just that idea of tradition and founded and like, we've been curing bacon for 90 years. I got together, I downloaded all of the images I thought I might need, and I even started laying them out like, okay, I think this would make great hero images, and down here, this might be good for the social proof section. And I even got some secondary textures, and I thought, okay, they're using wood in other places to, obviously because some of the bacon is wood smoked, but also to give you that idea of tradition. And so I just went ahead and got some textures that I already had downloaded, and thought, okay, maybe I can use these in the design. All right, speaking of which, I think that's enough intro. Thanks for bearing with me. Let's get into the design, and I hope that you enjoy it. All right, so jumping in, one of the first decisions that I made was I wanted to have the logo right in the middle of the page. The established user pattern is for it to be on the top left corner, and that's what I usually do. But for badges like this, there's just something about them where they look really great when they're in the middle of the viewport. They just feel so grounded and like they're, like, I don't know, in charge of the rest of the page. So because it's in the middle, I wanted to split up the navigation because it looks a little bit visually unbalanced when you have a bunch of links on the right, the logo in the middle, and nothing on the left. And then I wanted to be careful to make sure I put the really important links on the right hand side, because the user pattern that we know is that, okay, the action the website wants us to take, that's going to be in the top right corner. So if you're splitting up the navigation or doing something like that, make sure or consider having your important CTAs in the top right. I used the image of the cast iron skillet for the hero. I just loved how it reinforced the idea of slowing down, enjoying quality things, and the idea of heritage. And I put a little bit of an overlay behind the links just to make sure that they would be nice and legible. And then when I got into the headline, I started to ask myself, that wood badge, like how can I bring in some of that aesthetic, the text shadow and the arched text? Like how can I do some of that? That's pretty tough to do in Figma or some of the other design softwares you might use. So I went to Illustrator and I actually had a pretty hard time with it. I ended up figuring it out, but I think I sped this part of the video by like 20 times. Anyways, finished that out, got it in, and then used that gold color as kind of like the background text shadow, which I thought looked pretty great, and it kind of picked up on the egg yolk and some of the other things in the image. One of the foundational concepts in design is hierarchy, and I struggle with that a little bit in this header because once I finished the button, I realized, whoa, this is competing a little bit too much with that hashtag badge above the headline. And so I started experimenting with reducing the prominence of the badge by making it lower contrast and still making it legible with that layer blur in the background. If you want to be great at website design, you definitely need to be a master of typography. So there was this little paragraph kind of sitting all by itself on the homepage, just below the header. And I actually love moments like that. You know, we think of website design as being these like collages of opulent imagery, but there's something to be said for being able to create a beautifully typeset paragraph style that with very little adornment stands alone and can still engage the user, get them to slow down, and really read the content. That's what I attempted to do here, using the same font from the headline, making it kind of this jumbo style. And it should make a little warning in terms of accessibility that it's more accessible to use sentence case than it is to use all caps like I'm doing here over the headline. But I thought since it was a jumbo style that it'd be okay. Then I started working with the product grid, and Figma's new auto layout version 2.0 makes that so easy. In the background, I'm working with the copper plate style W and using one of the wood textures in the background just to kind of give it a little bit of accent. And this is one of my favorite moments of the design, actually. I was trying to create an off-white using that original yellow, and then I ended up loving how the yellow actually looked with the navy headline and the cards kind of shadowed over the front of that W. So it's just little moments like that where there's just this happy accident that really contribute to the design you weren't really anticipating, but you're just kind of allowing the process of the site to guide you with it. This next section is really interesting in terms of strategy. When we're designing something, we really have to think about the story that we're telling and how to tell it more powerfully. I noticed on the current homepage that they had a product slider, but it was really just like an image and the title of the product. But when I dug in and kind of clicked through to the detail page, there were blurbs and some other information, but more importantly, there were customer reviews. And some of these had incredible reviews. Like, I think this one that I based it off of, there was 175 or so, and it had like almost 5 stars out of 5. And we're, as people, as social beings, we're really swayed by that. We're influenced by that. Because if somebody says, man, I tried this thing, it was so delicious, you need to try it too, we can't wait to try it. We have to get our hands on it. And so we're increasing the power of our storytelling by paying attention to little things like that. I know that we're kind of used to rating stars. It's kind of like, oh, do I really need to include that? But if it's a really powerful piece of your storytelling, then definitely consider it and see about adding it. So this next section, it really came out of the relationship between this image and the slogan that I'm going to add in a second. You know, this image, like the other images are like lifestyle images with people laughing and smiling, or overlays or flat lays, I mean to say, with like biscuits and eggs and stuff in the background. I mean, but this is just bacon. It's just really a confident image that kind of says, you know, we really believe, we're confident in the quality of what we're offering of our product. And then it just paired so well with this statement that I'm playing with. How we make the bacon makes the bacon. I mean, it's fun to say, but it's one of those things that, one of those moments, kind of like what I talked about earlier with beautiful typesetting, when you just have something that kind of makes you slow down. I played a lot with having the text kind of on the sides and letting the photo kind of be like a divider, but I ended up opting for this layout where the text kind of sits on top of the photo a little bit, and it kind of breaks up the monotony of the bacon a little bit, but really ties that relationship between the two closer together. And then I wanted to start playing with bringing in some of that texture. Now we have a little bit of the texture in that W that's in the above section right below that slogan, but I wanted to have something a little bit more that just kind of doubled down on that idea of tradition. And I think they have it later as doing it like your grandfather did it. So I messed around it with a couple of different ways to do this, but I opted for kind of making it a grayscale image and then using, I think, hard light or luminosity, can't quite remember. And then just kind of scaling back the opacity just a little bit. And then I didn't quite like how you had that rough, or not that rough, but that like hard stop between the section above and below. So I added that gradient just so that the wood texture kind of faded in And so you're getting like these nice pairing of what do I call it? It's basically like you have these elements are all interacting. The wood texture in the background, the slogan, and then the picture of the bacon. And then I wanted to add one more element that kind of made it feel like, you know, when you walk into, I don't know, like a place that's selling antiques, and, you know, they just have like these little type badges or type moments. So I wanted to do something similar here where I think elsewhere on this site it says all the bacon is hand selected and hand trimmed. So I ended up trying to figure out, okay, can I do something that is less prominent than the how we make the bacon statement, but still feels like it's contributing to the overall layout. I really like what the current homepage did in terms of strategy here, because if the user hasn't clicked on one of the product detail pages and kind of continue the journey through there, but they're still scrolling through the homepage, I think the idea they had in mind was, okay, well, can we still get them to engage with our content by using something that's more of like a lifestyle angle? So here it's like learn how to cook bacon or browse a bunch of different bacon recipes. So if the user clicks into that, they're staying on the site, they're engaging with the content, they're learning more about bacon, and it's going to be more likely that instead of falling off or bouncing off of the site, they'll stay engaged and they'll end up making a purchase. The only thing I thought that we could improve on was the pathway cards on the current page are maybe just a bit small, like they're very short. And so since we have these really beautiful images, why don't we blow up the pathway cards and make them like this full bleed side-by-side elements, almost fill up the whole viewport. I did end up struggling with a little bit of the layout, like do I have the headline in the middle or the top? And I ended up realizing, oh, it's because I need a different ratio so that I can have the main content in terms of like visual photo content in the middle, I can have the headline at the top, and then I can have the call to action at the bottom. This section was really inspired by the headline. We do things a lot like your great-grandfather did. I just love that line. I think it's really well written. It's great copy. And so I wanted to have a section that really paired well with that headline. One of the things I did is the photo choice. So, you know, it's still like, a beautifully taken modern photo, but some of the elements in the photo just feel vintage, like the stack of logs or somebody chopping logs with an axe. And then I also wanted to use like another custom branding element. So I just hopped back into Illustrator to create this quick badge and referenced what they have currently in terms of their logo with the copper plate monogram and the 1922. I think I messed around with trying to get a iron skillet in there somehow, but didn't end up liking how that looked. So I just stuck with the more like typographic badge. But something interesting about the skillet that you'll see in a second is that, this is really just for Figma, but I love how its Boolean operations work, where I just added the rounding to the union element, the outside Boolean, and it just kind of added those curves in for me. So you'll see me trying to add in the skillet here, but really didn't work out. When I started exploring this second to last section, which is like a find a store locator, I realized that this should actually be a really important call to action because it directly supports the operations of the brand. Like when you buy bacon from your local grocery store that comes from Wright brand, you're supporting them. So one of the things I wanted to do was make it feel more prominent in the navigation itself by adding an icon. So since it's the only link that has that icon, it's going to feel a little bit more prominent. And then I could reuse that icon as a component here in the call to action section. Now in the current homepage, they have this section, but there's not a lot of real estate given to it. There's not a lot of white space surrounding it. And so it doesn't feel like the website is telling us it's very important. If you have something that you want your users to do, if you want to communicate, hey, we think this is important for you to do, then surrounding it with white space and giving it plenty of real estate, that's one of the kind of visual cues that you give to users. So that's what I did here with trying to make it a little bit bigger, and originally had that texture in the background, but decided I didn't like that quite as much and I wanted to use more of like an image-based component. So it's kind of like making it doubly prominent by it's surrounded by white space, but then the input itself is surrounded by the image. And then I wanted to use, I liked how that copper plate monogram looked at the top of the page with the wood texture behind it. So I wanted to reuse it for the CTA section just below it. And sometimes like when you use shadow, giving that shadow something to play off of, like a texture or lines, really helps the shadow to feel more real and natural. So I loved how that shadow played off of the texture and the star beneath it. So I close out with designing the footer, of course, and I wanted to close out my comments by saying, I'm really grateful for this community. I'm a self-taught designer. I learned by watching things on YouTube and Skillshare and lynda.com and just practicing on my own. But maybe one of the challenges is that you learn a lot more about software and tools and how to do things, more so than why you should do something or the fundamentals behind those things. So for me, it was just so much fun to think about how do I communicate the why. I hope that you found it fun and helpful. If you did, like I said at the beginning of the video, just drop a comment and let me know what you think. Let me know if I should do another one of these. In the meantime, I'll see you guys in the next one.